Hello, friends. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the planet Venus. The planet Venus is known as the planet of love. That's because Venus was a Roman goddess who was in charge of love and romance and beauty and all things feminine. Some people believed that Venus came from the sea, up from the water. And there are many artists who depict her in a really beautiful way. Some in a shell, some emerging from the waves, and always Venus is beautiful. But that's not really a good way to describe the planet Venus at all. The swirling gases and clouds on Venus' surface might look beautiful, but they're actually deadly. Sometimes gardeners want to grow plants or vegetables even when it's too cold or too hot outside for those particular plants to grow. Then the gardener can use something called a greenhouse. A greenhouse helps trap the heat and keep the temperature the same year-round so that many different types of plants can grow. These illustrations from NASA's website on climate help us to see exactly how the greenhouse works. When the sun's warm rays shine down through the glass of the greenhouse, the heat has trouble getting out. It can easily go in through the clear glass, but it has trouble escaping back out the top. So it keeps the greenhouse warmer than the area around. When the heat tries to rise out of the greenhouse, the glass traps a lot of it inside. Even though our planets are definitely not inside a greenhouse, this illustration shows how that same effect can happen to a planet when gases from the planet get trapped by the atmosphere and bounced back to the planet instead of being able to escape. Gases that float in the atmosphere and trap heat, keeping it from escaping and making it warm up the planet, are called greenhouse gases. Take a big breath with me. When I breathe in, my body takes oxygen from the air. Oxygen is a gas. My body and your body uses oxygen to work. It's part of what fuels our body and helps it to move. The oxygen gets into our bloodstream and helps our body to function correctly. But when I breathe out, I don't breathe out the oxygen. It stays inside my lungs and in my bloodstream. Only carbon dioxide gets breathed out. Carbon dioxide is not something that my body can use. In my room, I have some plants. Here's one of my plants. It's a mother-in-law's tongue. That's just what it's called. And back here, I have a plumeria. The plumeria only has one leaf right now because he's just growing back from the spring. But soon, he will grow even more leaves right here on this little tip. Right here, it's going to grow lots of leaves. In my window, I have some cactus plants and a kalanchoe plant. All of these plants have something in common. The thing that they have in common is that they breathe the opposite of what I breathe. I breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, but plants breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. That means that when I'm next to a plant, I'm getting a lot of fresh oxygen that plant could not use and put back out into the air. That's why plants are so good for the air. They help to refresh the oxygen that people need. And we're good for plants too, because we breathe out carbon dioxide that plants need. But there is a problem with too much carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide comes from a lot more places than plants. It comes from car engines and factories and many other places. And when there's too much carbon dioxide, that can cause a problem in our atmosphere, because carbon dioxide is one of those greenhouse gases that I was telling you about. If there's too much of it in the atmosphere, then the heat that comes down from our sun will get reflected as it rises back up. It will hit the greenhouse gases that are floating in the air, and instead of leaving, it will bounce back onto our planet. That heat will stay in, even as new heat is coming from the sun. And that's not great, because then the planet can't cool down very well. That brings us to the subject of Venus. On our Earth, we have a little bit of a problem with greenhouse gases, but on Venus, it's a huge problem with greenhouse gases, because all of those beautiful clouds that you saw are made of carbon dioxide. That's all that there is making up those clouds. That's a lot of carbon dioxide. That means that there's a lot of heat getting trapped inside the atmosphere of Venus and not being able to get back out because of all that carbon dioxide. So do you think that it's hot on the planet Venus or cold? Underneath those beautiful clouds is a raging hot planet that can get as hot as 900 degrees. That's almost 5 times as hot as it's ever been on Earth, and twice as hot as your oven can get. Scientists think that many years ago, there used to be volcanic activity on Venus. They even think there might have been water there at one time. A few years before I was born, the country of Russia in the continent of Asia, here on our planet Earth, sent different probes. Those are machines that can travel into space, but they have no people on board. The Russians sent these probes to the planet Venus, and some of them were even able to land. But because the surface of Venus is so hot, the probes were designed to end up melting. The scientists knew that they couldn't hold off the heat of Venus forever, but they made their probes as resistant to the heat as possible so that the probes could get some pictures of the surface of Venus. And they did. The probes were able to take pictures for a couple hours before the probes were destroyed by the heat. Here are some images from one of those Russian probes. You can see the machinery of the probe itself in the foreground, and in the background, you can see the ground of Venus. These are actual pictures rather than computer-generated pictures of what scientists think Venus might look like. This next photograph was taken by a U.S. satellite that was sent to explore Venus from above. There have been over 40 probes and satellites that have gone to explore Venus from the 1970s into the 1990s. Even though Venus is not expected to have any active volcanoes, here is an area of Venus that used to be a volcano. You can tell where the lava flowed. Here is a computer-generated image of Mont Mons, the tallest volcano on Venus. Venus and Earth are actually very similar in size. In fact, scientists believe that they used to have a lot more in common. That's why scientists plan to study Venus even further. Maybe you will be one of the scientists or astronauts who studies Venus in the future. Let's take a quick look at the planets that we've studied so far. The big fiery orange thing on the far left is our star, the Sun. Closest to it is the planet Mercury, with almost no atmosphere and that molten, hot iron core. Next to Mercury, you see Venus, the planet that we have been studying today, and the hottest planet in the whole solar system. Next to Venus, you see Earth. That's our planet that we live on, with all of the necessities for life. And you can even see our tiny moon in the corner. Some other planets you will find have moons as well. Thank you for studying Venus with me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.